Alrighty, it is getting to be that time again. Yes, yes, yes. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're taking a look at this. That's kind of small. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Unleashing the BS5000. Yes, the BS5000, revolutionizing teleprompters with 3D printing and glass hack. What else could you ask for? I don't know. I know I could ask for a latte. I got it perfect this time. This was perfect. The right amount of sugar, the right amount of vanilla syrup, and then of course the coffee beans and the grind and the exposure and, the whole 9 yards. 31 seconds is what it came down to, and that is amazing. Frothing the milk, nailed it. It is going to be an awesome day today. Okay, so anyway, the BS5000, you might be wondering about that name. What we're going to take a look at with the BS5000 is that it stands for beam splitting. And with teleprompters, usually what you end up having is a specially coated or treated glass that has a different refraction from one side to the other. So like if you buy commercial grade, or on Amazon, you look under beam splitter, you'll find some beam splitter glass, which we ended up getting. And the cool thing is that it'll refract 70% and 30%, so that way you get a real clear transmission, and then there's no transmission onto the camera when the camera is behind the teleprompter. So you get a nice clear picture. The person being able to use the teleprompter can read the words clearly, and you'd never know the difference. Well, you might, but anyway, the whole idea is that it doesn't interrupt the videoing or the taping or recording or whatever you're doing with your teleprompter, and it ends up, it's a really, really nice thing. So what we're going to end up doing today is we're going to go over the BS5000. Now I have different versions, and even prior to the BS5000, I ended up making a cell phone version of this teleprompter. So that way I could have something on the desk, and eventually I'm hoping to get into teleprompting, doing some scripts to keep me on track and make, more succinct videos instead of just rambling on. Speaking of rambling on, as I'm taking a sip and rambling on, you can like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that, and that would help with the algorithm. So you go ahead and do that, and I'm going to take a swig. Man, that is good. And now that that's done, we're going to go into Tinkercad, because that's how I made all this stuff, and show you what versions we have so far, and kind of the progression, the journey of what is the BS5000. And we're not going to spare it. We're going to jump into the BS here. So let's go ahead and get into it. Here we go. Boom, there it is. And let's do a little adjustment here. There. So there it is. We have the variation of the different types of teleprompters. And what I ended up doing is starting with the cell phone teleprompter. Now this is just kind of the base version. The housing, it doesn't include the extension that goes down or the L bracket. This is kind of like the first foray, and basically, yeah, that's how it ends up looking, and it's a pretty good little system. We'll actually printed one out, and I'll show you how that looks, and then there will also be a glass hack on how, when you use regular glass and you get that ghosting or that double exposure image, we'll show you how to get over that with a simple hack. So we did that. And then what we ended up doing is we kind of jumped to the Beam Splitter 5000. That was the big foray, because I wanted something a little bit bigger. I don't know, I got into beam splitting and teleprompters. I thought this would be a cool thing to do. So with that, this is a full-size one. And to give you a type of reference for this, this is a regular size iPad, which, let's go ahead and we'll put that all the way down. This is a regular size iPad that would fit in there, so you can see that. And then we have an iPad mini that would fit in there, so there's that. Let me get that out of the way. And then even if you wanted to use your cell phone, you could put it in this orientation or whatever orientation that you wanted. So that way you have some options. Now, the cool thing about the Beam Splitter 5000 is after going through and seeing a bunch of different teleprompters that you could buy on Amazon, you're looking at $75, $100, $200, $250, and sometimes even more for just teleprompters, which are glass and plastic, and maybe some, maybe some cloth. So I wanted to see how much I could save by designing and making my own teleprompter. So with the Beam Splitter 5000, eventually what we ended up doing is kind of making this. We got some rails in the back. We've got an access slot so that you can use a 1/4-20, and then you could move that L bracket that we have over here, and you could slide that up and down, and basically it kind of goes like that. And then what you end up doing is you could get something. This is a mock-up of the Sony FDR AX53, and basically what we'd end up doing is just kind of like so, and we'll just kind of select this, and so that way with that L bracket we could slide this up and down and then screw that in, and boom, there is our camera. So yeah, it works out really good. Now there is an unexpected benefit of the Beam Splitter 5000 is that it uses a 12.7 inch well, I think it's a 12.7 inch on this big one. I haven't printed this one out, but I'm thinking it might work. But as far as the width of it, the glass for a 12.7 inch will fit into this because I purchased an Amazon beam splitting glass, and then it'll also fit an 8x10, I'm thinking. And the reason I'm saying this is because this is the minimal BS 5000. So we don't want a lot of BS. We just want the minimal. We want to save material, so boom, this is what we end up having. And this is what we just printed out yesterday. So if we take a look at this here, jump into this thing. So yeah, it worked out pretty good. And so now let's go ahead and we'll set this over here like so. And now what we'll end up doing is we'll take a look at the different versions. So here is the cell phone version. Now this has got a hack applied to it, and this is going to be pretty interesting. So in previous videos, when I ended up doing the teleprompter with the cell phone version, you would get a lot of ghosting. And I was like, man, there's got to be a way to figure this out. So I was like, you know what? I think I've got a hack for this. And we'll go over that. But you tell me if there's a lot of ghosting. And so look at that. That is pretty good. That is infinitely better than what it was before. So when we're talking about doing a teleprompter, and this is with regular glass, this is a 4x6 piece of glass, and look at how good that comes out. Boom. We've solved the problem of normal glass with the ghosting, and I haven't seen anybody else come up with a solution. So, you got to give me props for that. So we got that there, and we'll go over that hack. But this is the cell phone one. And again, we have the L bracket, we've got a little stand, and then we've got a hole that we're going to put a knurled insert that's 1/4-20, so we could put this onto a tripod or something, and that came out really well. And again, like I said, we also printed out this here, which is the L bracket that will fit onto that, as those pieces marry up just like that. And then with quarter 20 bolt and nut, you can secure this, and so you can raise this up and down. So if you want to use a full size Handycam like the Sony AX53, or if you're going to use a web camera, you could put that on there as well, and just kind of put that in, and then you could raise that to your appropriate height. You can move it forward, like that. Pretty good. This turned out pretty well in regards to how this turned out. So I was really happy with that. Let's get this thing off there. And with some quarter 20 nuts, it worked out really well. But now we're going to move up to the minimalist. And this is the minimalist one that we printed out here that you can see. And we still did an L bracket. I did a little bit of a wider L bracket. I know I could have used the same one, but I wanted a little bit more sturdiness. And again, we've got that L bracket that can go up and down, and that works really well. And with a little quarter 20 on there, let's go ahead and secure that. But with these here, we'll be able to put the glass in here, and then you can set your tablet, your phone, your mini, whatever it is, and we'll be able to go. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a regular piece of glass, and you can see it's got all kinds of fingerprints on it. And this is an 8x10 piece of glass. So I originally made this for the beam splitter glass, which is 12.7, and I'm not sure the dimensions in freedom units, but it just so happens that this glass fits in there as well. Now there's a little bit of movement, but we've got enough material that the glass is able to fit into those slots with an 8x10 piece of glass. So if you're wondering, hey, I don't want to spend that much money on getting a beam splitter glass from Amazon, and that comes out to like $25. Excuse me. You can just go to the dollar store, go to some cheap store, Thrifty Nickel, I don't know, whatever it is. You can probably find them at garage sales, but get an 8x10 piece picture frame, and you can get the glass, and boom. Now you could use this as a minimal teleprompter. And so we'll take a look at this one. And I just happen to have my tablet. And we'll throw this in here. And we will throw this up. And there you can see we've got a really, really nice teleprompter. So the words are nice and clear, aside from the fingerprints on the glass, but that works out really, really well. And again, with teleprompter software, you can end up changing the margins and things like that, the size of the font, the colors. Of course, you're always going to want to have a black background and either white. That is usually the standard for the font. So yeah, this turns out really good. We don't get any of that ghosting. I mean, very, very minimal. And that is really, really good. So this turned out really well. With that, what we'll end up doing is we'll go to the beam splitting glass. Now the beam splitting glass is the high speed stuff that we ended up getting. There's like a special coating on here, so you can kind of see a little bit of a difference between that and the regular glass. And we'll put this in here, trying not to get fingerprints all over the place. Get them on. Don't you hate it when you can't get it in? And we will throw this in here. And we'll throw that up. And we can see that, yeah, it's almost the same. There's a little bit of a difference. I'm not sure if it's treated on both sides. And we can see if there's a difference. but that turns out pretty good. There is a difference, and man, that looks nice. But as far as going one way or the other, it might be just, oh, I think that's better. That's a better clarity on that. So there we can see with the beam splitter, it looks better in person, but it's definitely more clear than what you would end up seeing. And of course, if I hold it still, that might help as well. But the beam splitter glass gives a little bit more clarity than regular glass. But as you saw, the regular glass wasn't too bad either. But there is a hack that we can do for that. So let me get this out here. And I want to show you the hack for the glass. Because if you're making a teleprompter and it ends up that you have that ghosting, a simple hack that you can end up doing that nobody has ever done before is this right here. Now you might be wondering, what is this? This is the film that can go on windows. That's a privacy window film. So what I ended up doing on a small piece of glass, the 4x6, and I'll get this out here, is I just put that privacy film on one side, and there's the other side, and so this fixes that ghosting. So this darker side is going to be facing out, and when we put this in here, as long as I don't screw up the sheet on there, and boom, there it is. So when we end up doing this, this is, I was so excited on this. Let's see. And let's go ahead and we'll restart this. And what we get is a super clear picture. Now you're going to get some, we got some reflection of the light, but look at that. That came out great. Pretty incredible in regards to not seeing the ghosting. Now, if you haven't watched the previous videos, you might be thinking, well, I mean, that's pretty good. Let's see if we can get it minus the, there we go. I mean, look at how clear that is. That is super clear. So what we're going to end up doing now is I'm going to take off this protective film. And again, all I ended up doing is just spraying some water and cut out a piece and put it onto the glass. But I want you to see how this looks without that privacy film on there that you can put on your windows. And let's see. I'll show you the difference. So you can see how we have that ghosting on there. That's what we end up having, is with that ghosting, we get like that double exposure. So that privacy film is a game changer when we're talking about getting rid of that. So again, I don't know if I'll be able to put this back on, but we'll give it a shot. Of course, it'll probably need some water. It's not 100%. And of course, you got all these bubbles and stuff in here that you got to get out. But so this privacy glass film, when we put this on here, I'll just do a little cheap job on here. Let's see if we can get this in here. And there we can see the difference with the quality. Of course, we got to get those bubbles out of there, but look how clear that is compared to what it was before without that privacy film. So, yeah. And we've got an emergency notification. some underpasses closed here in Korea. And we have George. George pops in and says, "Hey, howdy, how you doing? Get some sleep last night?" George was having some problems sleeping the other night, and I can relate to that at times. So anyway, and he's also getting a new printer, so that's cool. You gotta appreciate that. Getting the Anycubic S1 combo, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome, George. Yeah, we're just kind of going over the BS 5000, the teleprompters. And what we ended up doing is we just went over the cell phone one, which turned out really, really good, especially with that privacy film hack so that you don't get that ghosting. And that we did before, like I just showed. We also did the minimal BS 5000. So we ended up doing this, and we'll throw the piece of glass in there just for George, like so. And let's throw this thing in here. And we'll get this going. And it seats in there pretty good. And like I said, this is a 12.7-inch glass, beam splitting glass that you can get off of Amazon. But it also fits an 8x10 glass. Piece of glass fits in here. So that is kind of interesting. So we'll just go ahead and we'll set this in here. And boom, there is our teleprompter. And we can see that turns out really, really nice. I mean, that is, the clarity on that is pretty good. So, minus the glare up there. But yeah, the beam splitter glass works out pretty good. But like I said, if you do experience ghosting, what you can end up doing is getting some privacy film, like we have here. I think I got it off of Amazon. I can't remember if I did or not. But privacy glass, so you can see in and not see out. Boom, throw it onto a regular piece of glass and it'll minimize that ghosting and it'll come out really, really well. So that's what we got going on. George says that he's been updating things on his PC to be ready for Thursday. Thursday's the big day for George because he's getting his Anycubic S1 combo is going to be delivered. So he's going to be jumping into the foray of what is 3D printing, and it's just like crack. The first one's free, and then, yeah, it's an expensive hobby. The good thing about 3D printing is it keeps you out of trouble. Yeah, you got to buy filament. Yeah, your house is going to be full of 3D prints and so on and so forth, and you'll have upgrades and whatever. But after that's all over, it really keeps you out of trouble. So, I got to appreciate that. My wife appreciates that, and it is what it is. So anyway, that's what we ended up doing. We took a look at the different models that we ended up having for the BS 5000. This is going to be the fully enclosed version, which we haven't printed out yet. I'm drying out some filament, and that's going to be a big one there. And we even have we're going to have that, the BS 5000. And prior to that, our first one was the cell phone teleprompter, and with an 4-inch by 6-inch piece of glass that we just got from, picture frame at like dollar store or whatever. They don't have dollar stores in Korea, but they have kind of similar stores. And then we just went over the minimal BS, because for those people who don't want a lot of BS, the minimal BS might be something that you want if you want something a little bit bigger than the cell phone teleprompter. You could go to the minimal. Now, I haven't posted these yet onto Creality Cloud, but I'm going to be posting those, and I'll be doing that after I've got the Beam Splitter 5000 here and getting that one all squared away and doing a print and making sure that everything works on that. It'll be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure the 8x10 piece of glass will work inside of, or I should say over here, the Beam Splitter 5000 that we see on screen here. along with that glass from Amazon. And if we take a look at that, I'm going to pull this up and take a look at the orders so I can show you. Dun, 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 dun. There it is. I'll kind of show you what we're talking about. Do a little screen share action, and boom, there it is. So over here, or actually over here, the 12.7-inch beam splitting glass, 70-30 by some magic sorcery that they've got going on, what it ends up doing. And the packaging is great. Transmits 70% of the light, reflect 30% of the light, however that ends up working. But yeah, it's 8. Oh, look at that. It's an 8 by 10, 8.1 inch by 10 inch. So it will work. The regular 8 by 10 glass will work in the Beam Splitter 5000. So you can either buy this at $25, $26, or you can just go to thrift store and get an 8 by 10 picture frame, pull the glass, and throw it into the BS 5000. And you'll have a cool teleprompter once I get it all done. So, yeah, some really good stuff there. Let me see if that window tint, and see if I ended up, yes I did. So if you want to take a look at this, there it is. Purchase that. Window privacy film, one-way daytime mirror tint treatments, UV heat control. And I originally got this for the enclosure for my resin printer because it was close to a window, and since this had a little bit of a UV thing protection going on it, I thought, hey, let me try this. And yeah, it works on that. And the added benefit works on the regular glass to get rid of the ghosting. So if you get ghosting, there's a little bit of an expense there. I got the brown silver, but I'm thinking, you know, that just kind of matched the color. I don't know if that has anything to do with getting rid of the ghosting like we saw on the cell phone teleprompter. But yeah, you could probably just get some privacy film at, you know, a hardware store, auto parts store. That wouldn't be as expensive. I ended up getting more because it was used for another project, so this was the remainder. So it's always good to have stuff left over. So there it is, the little glass hack that we ended up having with our Beam Splitter 5000, the minimal BS, and of course with our cell phone teleprompter that we ended up making. And the cell phone teleprompter is actually, that is on the Creality Cloud site. And so if I do this and I go here and do that, and we can take a look at this, and there it is. So I got a few other models that I put up there. They're all free, by the way, so enjoy that. Another reason to like and subscribe to the channel. But here is the free 3D printed one, and we can kind of see what we ended up getting there. And boom, yeah, good stuff. So the files, the 3MF file on there, I printed this out on the K2 Plus, but it's entirely doable because it's a small size. So even for something like the Anycubic, that could work on that as well. Matter of fact, let's find out the dimensions on this thing. So this is, to print this out all the way, this would be approximately 200, so that'd be 200 millimeters by approximately 190, and then that is 120. So you could definitely print this out on your Anycubic, or smaller size, maybe a little bit smaller size, definitely on a bamboo or 256 cubed, and you'd be good to go. The other thing is that if you ended up, like you wanted to print something like this, the other thing that you could end up doing is slicing this within your slicing software. So I think I went over that previously on the Creality K2 Plus, and let's go over that just a little bit. So let's pull this up, and we'll get a recent project. Yeah, the Beam Splitter 5000. the original one. Of course, it wouldn't be printed in red. Of course, it would be black, but this just shows up a heck of a lot better. And we'll kind of move this over here. We'll kind of zoom in a little bit. But what you can end up doing is taking this. Now, this is just a mock-up because I wanted, it doesn't have the hole in the back and everything, but I just wanted to find out kind of an estimate of how much filament it would take to print this thing out. But what you could end up doing is slicing this, and we'll do a planar cut. We'll just go like 45, and we'll kind of move this over here. So in other words, you know, the circle's going to be in the middle, so we'll go off to the side. And again, you've got that L bracket in the back, so you don't want to split that apart. So you could just do something like this. We could add the connectors, and on this piece here, let's see, we could do the size, I don't know, just put something like that. And we'll just do a plug, or let's just see what happens here. Boom. So it's kind of got that conical little shape there, and you could do something like that and cut this thing in two or whatever, and then add whatever, you know, connectors that you need for this. And of course you could adjust them as necessary, and then we'll confirm those connectors. And that one connector right there is a little bit too big, so we'll just get rid of that. So we'll confirm the connectors, we performed that cut, and let's see, no, we don't want to do that, we want to do this, and then now we have those two parts. Let me get rid of that. And now you can see we've got those connectors on there, and then on the other piece over here, we have the corresponding holes. So you could end up cutting this and having multiple plates, so that if you don't have something like a big size plate like the Creality K2 Plus, you could cut up the models into smaller pieces and then put them together, and boom, you could have your beam splitter 5000. So yeah, that's what we end up having. Some fun stuff that you could do. We're going to be printing out the, what else? I got to close that, and this and that, and all that other stuff. And I think we're good to go. So there it is, the Beam Splitter 5000. We have the cell phone version that we ended up printing, and again, we kind of used that hack with the privacy film on there to get rid of the ghosting with a 4-inch by 6-inch piece of glass. And then we graduated to the minimal BS, because I know a lot of people don't like BS. So with the minimal version, you can use that 12.7-inch beam splitting glass that you can get off of Amazon for $26. But if you're cheap like me, you can just go get an 8x10 picture frame, pull the glass, boom, slide this in, and you have your minimal BS teleprompter. And then later, after I kind of do some little final touches on the BS 5000, the full enclosed, we'll print that out and we will post that as well. So yeah, it ends up, it's a pretty good little project that we got going on. The question remains, will I use the teleprompter? I don't know, because I don't know, I kind of ramble from time to time. Maybe I should use the teleprompter, get into it and try to use it. I probably will. We'll see how that goes, especially if live streaming. I like the live streaming and having discussions and people asking questions or comments and stuff like that. It makes it more real. I really appreciate that, and the conversations that we have, sharing stuff and just, you know, off the cuff questions or whatever. So I guess I could do that with also the teleprompter. I would just have to pause it, and you know, then we could just kind of go off track and go down rabbit holes and all that stuff. But I think that would be all right too. So anyway, let's get back on track talking about teleprompters. Again, you could find that on Creality Cloud. The Varied Life is the name of my page on Creality Cloud, where you can get those free files. So boom, it's free. That's worth a like and subscribe, I think. Throw me some love, give me a like on the video. I would really appreciate that. With that being said, I think we're going to be done here. So we're going to go to this screen. And this screen means that we're at the end. And we're going to have to go. Today is a workout day, so I got to do that. If you want to contact me, right down here is an email address. I answer every single email, even from the crazy people. And if you're into 3D printing or retiring overseas or painting miniatures, yeah, you're part of the family. So just give me a couple days, and usually I reply. George's got a question. He says, have you used wood filament by chance? No, I actually haven't. I've got some brown colored filament, but I haven't actually used wood yet. So, and I've been looking at that recently, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to see how that wood works. Wood works? Yeah, pun intended. Because there are a couple things that I would like to do, like maybe Groot or, some other things that I would like to print. There's so many things I would like to print is what it comes down to. But no, I haven't tried it yet. Mostly just PLA, PETG, and pretty much just sticking with the other models that I did were printed in white. Of course, this stuff is going to be printed in black. I do have some other colors, and I'm going to print some stuff for like my wife's niece's kids or whatever, flexi dinosaur thing or whatever. So I'll use those colors on that. But if you end up using it with your printer, let me know how that goes. I would really like to know because I haven't run into anybody that's used wood filament, live in person and, have discussions and stuff. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, again, the best thing that you could absolutely do is give me a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated. I also have information and videos on painting miniatures. I taught myself how to paint miniatures, which is really cool. And then I do resin printing as well. And by the way, I'm also a retired American expat living in Korea. So I got some videos on that as well. And in about 10 days or so, we're going to be taking a trip to Hanoi. So we're going to be posting some stuff on that. Not sure how that's going to work out, but it'll probably be live videos. I'll probably try to do like 30-second spots or 60 seconds. And then when I get back, I'll get into Final Cut Pro and make a professional video of our vacation. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All these people that are over here, not over here, but over here, these are the people that bought me coffee. And if you want to do that, I have much respect for you and the people there. If not, again, just like the video. Begging. Appease the algorithm gods that YouTube is overseen by, and I would appreciate that. So other than that, that's it. That's all I got. If you've got information, if you've on 3D printing, FDM, resin printing, miniature painting, something that you found using new filaments, send me an email and show me that stuff. Tell me what you're doing. I would really like to know, and sharing the experiences really helps, and it makes me smarter, faster, and Lord knows I need all the help I can get. So with that being said, we're going to cut this video off and stop rambling, and hopefully everybody will have a good day. It is almost 8 o'clock in the morning here in Korea, and it is Wednesday, the 3 September. So I think it's like 2 September in the United States. So yeah, hopefully you have a good evening, good day, wherever you're at, and we will see you on the next video. So it's good chatting with everybody. All right, peace. Good stuff. Beam Splitter 5000. You gotta love it.